Everything seemed peaceful that summer in Los Angeles. But everything changed when the doorbell camera suddenly activated at midnight and captured a blurry face. Anna and Mark, a couple, had just moved into the intended new house. For 6 months, they hadn't paid much attention to the doorbell camera until this spooky night. At 2 o'clock midnight on a Wednesday, the doorbell camera footage began to blur and become unresponsive, seemingly due to the dimness of the night and the faint light from a distant street lamp. The wind howls and rustles in the darkness, making the image even more eerie. In the shot, a man seems to gradually emerge through the dark shadows in front of the iron doorbell of a door. The man appears to be standing in front of the door, but his face cannot be seen due to the low resolution of the camera. The man jerked up one hand as if searching for the doorbell. Then, his fingertips gently touched the doorbell button, making a faint ding-dong sound. The moment he pressed the doorbell, a strange light shot out from his fingertips and traveled through the doorbell like an electric current. The doorbell light came on, and suddenly an intense energy seemed to spread across the entire camera feed. The camera suddenly blurred, as if disturbed by some supernatural force, and then suddenly rang again. However, at that moment, the man in front of the door was gone. In its place, the doorway was quiet. Mark, the owner of the house, had just lay down when he suddenly heard the sudden ringing of the doorbell at midnight and was in a state of consternation. He hurried down the stairs and opened the door, but could see no one or nothing but the silence of the night sky and the distant woods rustling in the wind. The next day, Anna and Mark tried to rationalize what had happened. They checked the footage but found nothing, just blackness. However, as they went back and forth several times, watching the footage over and over again, they heard a strange sound, a soft whisper, as if it were an ancient incantation. The voices were faint and almost imperceptible at first, but as they gradually became louder, Anna and Mark could no longer ignore them. They were like the sound of the wind, but unusual in that they seemed to carry a message without words. They came from the corners of the house, wandering back and forth as if they were invisible entities. At times, the voices became deep and disturbing, as if they were distant screams, as if some imprisoned spirit were calling out. They haunted the night, guiding Anna and Mark to unfamiliar territory. Whenever the voices appeared, the house seemed to fall into an odd silence. Everything stops, even time. And when the voices subsided, reality returned once more, but they knew that the invisible scoffer was still waiting. Anna picked up her cell phone and tried to record the mysterious sounds. She gently pressed the record button and placed the phone in the center of the room. Suddenly, the screen of the phone became weirdly bright, displaying ancient symbols and strange patterns that seemed to shimmer and twist. They were like living creatures, writhing and trying to form a strange pattern. Anna flung her cell phone out of her hand in terror, and it fell to the floor, the screen shattering and the sound stopping. She felt a strange fear, as if she had just touched territory beyond human understanding. The event made her realize that they were dealing with more than just ordinary horror, but some ineffable ancient power. Driven by curiosity and a growing sense of unease, Anna decides to record the mysterious sounds again on Mark's smartphone. She wanted to capture evidence of the strange events plaguing their home. With trembling hands, she lifted the phone and pressed the record button. As the recording began, the room was filled with low, eerie whispers. They seemed to react to the intrusion, becoming more pronounced and distinct. Unintelligible words, an unforgettable ancient language echoed through the device. The sound was creepy, and Anna couldn't shake the feeling. It was aware of her presence. Mark sat nearby, worry written on his face as he watched Anna record the ghostly voice. The atmosphere in the room became stark, as if unseen entities were manifesting themselves through the recording. Anna looked down at her cell phone in horror, but she felt a sharp, unusual chill. She felt an invisible presence seem to be approaching her, almost oppressive enough to gradually increase in intensity. "Who's there?" Anna muttered to herself in a whisper, her voice seeming to be sucked into a bottomless pit. She looked closer before realizing it, but couldn't see anything visible. However, she felt an invisible presence drawing her in around her. Presence was around. Suddenly, objects in the room began to topple over, furniture shifted, and books opened as if an invisible hand was playing with it all. Terrified, Anna tries to rush to the door, but it closes like steel and cannot be opened. Without realizing it, she was caught in a terrible trap, and the invisible presence seemed to mock her, gradually becoming stronger and more aggressive. Then, unexpectedly, the whispers turned into a disturbing chant, and the lights in the room began to flicker erratically. Anna's heart raced as she desperately tried to stop the recording, but her cell phone seemed to be controlled by a transcendent force. It wouldn't respond to her frantic attempts to pause or delete the file. The chanting grew louder and louder, and the room seemed to fill with a ghostly choir, their voices ringing out in creepy harmony. The air grows cold and the walls appear to distort and ripple as if the very fabric of reality is being challenged. Anna and Mark hugged each other in horror, unable to comprehend the strange and malevolent changes taking place before their eyes. The song grew stronger, and with a final chilling wail, the recording came to an abrupt end, and the room fell silent once more. They fell into a stunned silence, their world forever changed by the evil encounter they had just witnessed. Cell phones captured the unexplainable, and their home now became a portal to something they could not comprehend. The sinister presence that has been lurking in the shadows is no longer content to remain undetected. It reveals itself in the most malevolent way possible, forcing Anna and Mark to face a terrible reality. They are not alone in their home. They can feel someone watching them, but when they turn, it all disappears. Creepy faces appeared in the doorbell camera every night afterward, and the time of their appearance moved forward hour by hour, day by day. Each time they experienced more unexplained events, each escalating in intensity. Furniture moved on its own, strange symbols appeared on the walls, and the house itself seemed to warp. Anna and Mark's sleepless nights turn into a blur of fear, and they begin to question their sanity. On a dark night, when the voice sounded again, the lights in the room suddenly went out, shrouding everything in darkness. It wasn't the opposite of darkness, but a darkness that engulfed everything and gave way to an infinite fear. Anna and Mark opened their eyes widely and tried to see around them, but all they could hear was the sound of their breathing and their heartbeats, which was their only comfort. When the darkness cleared, they realized that they had been taken to some sort of basement in the house. In this basement, there seemed to be no exit, only ancient symbols carved into the walls, wearing a strange sort of index. It was then that they heard the whisper, and the voice became stronger, as if it were telling them a mysterious secret. But they could not understand where it was coming from, or what it meant. Suddenly, the room began to tremble. The foundations under the floor seemed to roar, and the symbols began to flicker. A door opens, and they see the pale woman's face in the doorway, her eyes flashing red. Anna and Mark hesitated in the doorway of this ancient basement. They feel not only fear, but also a strange and intense curiosity. They want to understand the mystery behind it all, but at the same time they realize that it could be a dangerous trap. The pale woman's face looked both beautiful and terrifying at the same time, and her eyes revealed a contradictory emotion of seduction and destruction. She held out her hand as if she was guiding them, but her smile was unusually eerie, causing chills to well up in one's heart. "We can't do nothing," Anna whispered, trying to muster her courage. "Perhaps this is a test or a warning. We must go forward and face this nightmare." Mark tightened his grip on Anna's hand, showing his support and determination. They realized that the space was unusually dark, surrounded by only faint light. Symbols and ancient writings shimmered on the walls, emanating a mysterious energy. They felt the oppressive aura that permeated the room, a presence that had been absent for a long time. Suddenly, strange noises filled the air in the basement. Anna and Mark look around, surprised at the source of the sounds. what seemed to be faint calls mixed with low hissing, all of which made their hearts beat faster. They followed the voices, following a maze of corridors and eventually coming to a spacious room. This room was filled with the unknown, with mysterious rituals and images of ancient gods. In the center of the room was an ancient altar with disturbing objects and candles, and behind the altar they saw a dark figure, a figure in the darkness that was slowly emerging. They found themselves in a labyrinth of underground passages made of ancient stones and sharp rock walls. The passages were filled with a strange aura, as if they were made of blood and decaying tissue. Suddenly, a dark cloud of smoke dispersed, blurring their vision. In this smoke, they began to see visions, flashes of light, and echoes of voices. A blurry figure, or rather a shadow, began to emerge from the mist. The shadow seemed to be an incarnation of the woman, but it became more terrifying, with a demonic race. She began to tell an ancient tale, a tale of spite, damnation, and death. The sound echoed through the passageway, chilling. As time passed, they found themselves deep underground, no longer knowing how to return. They are bound by this nightmarish underground labyrinth, and the invisible scoffers seem to be the only ones of their kind. The dark phantom gradually revealed itself, still not clear enough to be seen, but enough to shock Anna and Mark. The phantom looked vague and seemed to exist between reality and illusion at the same time. A wordless coldness that seemed to spew out of the figure. The voice also became clearer, but it was still an ancient language that no one seemed to be able to understand. Yet, in this darkened room, their curiosity overcame their fear. Anna slowly approached the figure and attempted to speak to it. Mark followed close behind, ready to protect her at all times. "Who are you?" Anna asked cautiously, her voice echoing through the space. As if the figure saw her presence, it began to gradually reveal a side. It was an old face with a deep, wise gaze, but at the same time full of hurt. "I am an ancient soul, bound for thousands of years." The figure responded distantly. "You are the first to come in search of the truth." They heard an ancient legend about the land's mysterious past and a tragedy. This ancient spirit told a tale of love, defiance, and revenge, all of which seemed to be at the root of this bizarre event. They understand that to solve this mystery, they must help this ancient spirit fulfill his last wish and free his soul for the nightmare of extinction. Anna and Mark decide to take on this task, and although it is fraught with danger, they believe it is the only way to eliminate the invisible scoffer, free their home, and understand this ancient secret once and for all. Anna and Mark make a vow and decide to help the ancient spirit fulfill his last wish. The ancient spirit guides them to explore the ancient artifacts hidden in the house, items that may reveal clues to this ancient story. The quest isn't easy, as the house seems to have its own trickery that prevents them from moving forward. "You are needed to gather ancient relics," said the ancient spirit. "These relics are the key to my return. Bring them to the altar and awaken my memories so that I can leave this world." So Anna and Mark accepted the challenge. They searched throughout the house for ancient relics that held stories of the past and ancient mystical powers. Each ancient relic carries a different life and seems to have its own memories. With their ancient legends and the sadness behind them, these relics bear witness to the life journeys of ancient souls. First, they began to search every corner of the house. They found an ancient piece of sheepskin hidden in an old drawer, inscribed with ancient symbols. The leather appeared to have been used in some sort of ritual. Next, they found in an old chest a dusty letter filled with ancient handwriting that appeared to be an old letter. In their bedroom, they found an ancient ring with a faint glow from its gemstone that seemed to hold the mystical power of countless years. In the study, they found an ancient handwritten book whose contents were filled with depictions of ancient myths and rituals, a book that seemed to have an inevitable history. When they placed all the ancient relics on the altar, it shimmered and glowed with a faint mystical light. Anna's hands gently caressed the items, trying to understand their history and power. One of the items was an ancient ring that seemed to have special markings. Ancient spirits waited in the darkness, knowing that the only way to unlock this mysterious magic was with Anna's help. But it would require Anna to cut her finger and place a drop of blood on the ring. "It is the only way," the figure's voice rang in their ears. "Only your life force can awaken this ancient magic." Mark grabbed Anna's hand, and they gazed deeply in each direction before nodding in silent agreement. Anna gently picked up the ring and carefully cut her finger, placing a drop of blood on the ring. The ring began to shimmer and emit a mysterious light. Then suddenly a strong energy erupted. A brilliant, radiant ball of light formed, hovering above the altar, waiting for guidance. The room was filled with panic, and a mysterious power filled the entire basement. As the ball of light gradually spread, a faint mist of light filled the air. These mists of light transformed into translucent human forms, the souls of the ancestors. They appeared in a tranquil and peaceful state, as if they had found their way home. The ball of light gradually formed a shimmering portal to the spirit world. This portal utilized the light of the soft realm to give a mysterious and peaceful artery. The souls are drawn toward the portal, gradually moving toward the light. As the souls walked through, they seemed to begin to transmit heartfelt wishes and wisdom. In this moment, they conveyed to Anna and Mark a deep sense of love, wisdom, and hope for the family. One by one, the souls traveled through the portal and eventually disappeared into the light. They have found their eternal home and bid farewell to the world. The portal gradually contracted until it closed completely. "Thank you," said the ancient spirit gratefully. "You have helped me find relief. Now I can go." With these words, they felt the silence around them, and the eerie feeling disappeared as if a nightmare had perished. They understood that the ancient souls had been liberated and their mission was accomplished. This moment, full of emotion and solemnity, allowed the ancestors to find their spiritual home. Anna and Mark understood the wisdom and mystical power of the ancestors and felt that these souls had found their home in the final unraveling of the family history. They stepped out of the basement, and peace was restored to the house. No more voices, no more disturbances from ghosts. The spooky nightmare was, at last, over. Anna and Mark decided to leave the house, but they will always remember experiencing that terrifying moment of confrontation with the supernatural and their courage in helping to free the spirits. It will be a piece of history that they will always remember in their lives. These ancient relics were treasures from the ancestral collection of the original owner of the house, a wealthy aristocrat named Joseph Stanley. Joseph Stanley was a wealthy merchant and explorer who lived in the late 18th century. He was passionate about finding unknown wonders and ancient treasures. This ancient piece of leather was once part of an occult ritual. It belonged to an ancient ritualist who tried to get close to supernatural forces but went astray. The leather was part of his attempt to create a portal to another dimension, but the ritual failed, causing his spirit to fall into eternal damnation. Joseph Stanley spent generations and heavy money traveling the world and collecting hundreds of ancient artifacts, including this mysterious piece of leather. Little did he know, however, that the mysterious power of this piece of leather would spell disaster. Joseph had found this ancient letter during one of his expeditions. The letter was written by a noblewoman named Alice Winder to her husband. The letter is full of deep love. However, Alice and her husband were separated due to a war, and this letter became the witness of their tragic love. This ancient ring once belonged to Joseph's great-grandmother, Margaret Stanley. She was a famous witch and soothsayer with great mystical abilities. She used the ring to perform a ritual of mystical deactivation in an attempt to break down the walls of the real world. However, the results of the ritual led her to hide the ring, sealing it away. This ancient codex was the brainchild of Joseph's grandfather, Alfred Stanley. Alfred was an avid scholar of the occult, rituals, and magic. He considered this book a family treasure, recording many ancient rituals and magical secrets. These relics were family heirlooms, passed down from generation to generation, carrying stories of ancestral ambitions and the quest for knowledge of the unknown. When Joseph's descendants collect these relics back home, they also inherit a strange legacy. Eerie nightmares lead them to unravel the mysteries of the ancient family, revealing the price their ancestors paid for their mysterious powers. Anna and Mark have lived in the house for only 6 months before bizarre events occurred. But why haven't previous generations of homeowners encountered them? In the ancient handwritten books, Anna discovered that the family's forefathers had used ancient relics to raise an altar in the basement 400 years ago to perform a ritual in an attempt to open up to the other side. However, the ritual failed, and all souls were sealed in magic with a spell left in the ancient relics, saying that after 400 years, the curse was lifted and the souls returned. There is a mysterious bloodline hidden in this family's heritage. Anna and Mark happen to be the long-lost perfect match chosen ones in the family's history, who possess genetic races that are different from those of their forefathers. These races make them more sensitive to supernatural powers, a genetic heritage that previous generations of homeowners did not have. Anna and Mark are guided to this house by ancient spirits as they take away a mysterious omen. Their meeting and purchase of this house was not only a coincidence, but also a destiny in the universe. They are destined to uncover the secrets of this family's history. As the ancient souls find a home in the unraveling of the historical family, they begin to move on to a whole new journey of life. These souls find a new home in the modern mortal world and are reincarnated into ordinary families. Born as newborns, they experience daily human life with a new lease on life, free from the shackles of the past. Although these souls have been reincarnated, they seem to retain some of the skills and wisdom from their family history. They may exhibit unique cognitive abilities or interests in life that surprise their parents.